we're going to be in Isaiah chapter 9, if you want to be turning there, but for a little bit, we're just kind of setting this up. Does it matter what I call you? Does it matter? Yeah? So I can say like, Brooks is my friend, but if like 3 out of 4 times I get his name wrong, does it matter what I call him? Like, yeah, that's at some point it's gonna be like, you say you're my friend, you don't even really know my name, right? That can be a problem. I could also call you not nice things, and that would probably get old pretty quickly, if not immediately, right? Being like, you're my friend, I care about you, you are this to me, or I can be like, you sorry son. Very different, right? It scared you, a couple of you. A couple of you thought you were about to experience something this morning. So no, we're not going that far, but it matters. Like what I call you matters. And even for us of like, what do we call ourselves? That matters. Because we're in a world of like, we need to have an identity, and I need to be firm and secure in my identity and know what that is and know how to define it. And then I need to broadcast that from the inside to the outside so that everyone knows who I am, what I'm about, what you should call me. And I'm really not trying to over politicize it, because it's not about the politics. That's usually a reflection of something that's happening inside, right? And so from the inside, we work to the outside to make the world fit the way we think it should fit on the inside. And so especially in identity, what should we call someone? And that being such a real hot topic in this world of like, what do I call you? It's from this inside place of people seeking identity and seeking to know who they really are and what they should be called. Now, as believers, we know that we have a different identity. We don't belong first to man. We don't belong first as woman or man or American or whatever it is. We belong first to God. And with everything in our relationship with God, the more that we learn about him and who he is and what his nature is and what he is called, the more it reveals about us of who we are and what our identity is and what we should be called. And so the idea of this morning and the idea of this series is not a very traditional Christmas series, but it's named He Shall Be Called. Because we sing these beautiful songs like, oh, come all ye faithful, hey, secrets out, that's us. If you call on Christ and you are a faithful follower of his, this song is saying, hey, we faithful ones, we will go and we will adore him. But who is him? Who are we going to adore? And the Christmas season sets us up, especially here with like all the nativity scenes and the movies and the specials and the songs and Mary, did you know? And we say, who are we going to adore? And we just immediately picture this little 6-pound, 8-ounce baby Jesus wrapped up in swaddling clothing, lying in a manger. And this delicate scene, and they're talking about him not crying, which that's not in the Bible. So I don't know where we get that from that song, but I'm sure a sound he did make because he's a baby and babies cry. That's what they do. And so we say we come to adore him, and then maybe we never take the next steps to really answer in our own heart, who is it that we are going to adore? And so that's why we're going to back up. We're going to go all the way to Isaiah, to the book of Isaiah, long before, 800 years before baby Jesus ever hits the scene, to learn about who it is and what they are calling the one who will come to rescue us all. So in Isaiah chapter 9, verse 6, we see this. For unto us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. See, there's this tension in this already that we have to address, and that's what we're going to spend some time talking through is he wasn't just a baby. He was fully a baby, crying, messing himself, Mary having to change him, needing to be fed, like easily irritable. He was a baby, fully a baby. But he was also fully, in that moment, in his flesh, also God. And that's a weird, miraculous, uneasy thing for us to try to work through because the baby part's easy. We get that. I can put Jesus in the manger on Christmas and go, I understand that. Mary had a baby. God gave Mary the baby. She had it. That's Jesus. But in the same moment, he is also all of these things. He is this wonderful counselor, this mighty God, this everlasting Father, this Prince of Peace. And so I want to go back through, I want to break that down, and we're going to talk about these and the identity of God for the next few weeks as we prepare our hearts for Christmas to celebrate what he has done for us. So first, Isaiah 9, verse 6, for to us a child is born, to us a son is given. That's the first part I talked about. Like, that is not a metaphor. That is a literal baby boy being born, given to this world as a son of man, just like us. And so in every way that we are human and all of the things that we struggle with, this same person, this same child is being born just like us. And that's going to be so necessary for us to understand because it's complicated and it's deep and it's fascinating and it's wonderful, but it's the reality that Jesus experienced every single thing that you and I experience, from the moment of conception to birth to his death. For unto us a real baby boy is born, and to us, the faithful, a son is given. And then it says, to contrast this, because how many of you have had a child in the room? Raise your hand if you have had a child. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I see some of you have them sitting with you. It's wonderful. And so you have had these children. Now, as you're describing this baby that you've had, like, we've had this baby and they've got this color hair and these eyes and this is their weight and this is their temperament and this is kind of what they like and what they don't like. And then usually it's not followed with, and the government will rest on their shoulders. Right? No, we're in this other realm of like, no, we want to protect. We want to keep and shelter them from harm and make sure that the world does not crush them and bear over them. As parents, you're trying to bear the weight for your children. But all the way back in Isaiah, we're seeing that this child that is going to be born is not only going to be fully a child, but also bear the weight and responsibility of the entire world on his shoulders. And we look at those words and we see what does government mean? Because America didn't exist when Isaiah was writing this, right? They didn't have the democratic system that we have now. It wasn't Republican or Democrat. It wasn't anything like that. For them, it was kings and rulers and authorities. And so in the translation, when it's saying that the government will rest on this child's shoulders, it's saying that all that is in ruling and all that is in authority and all that is in power will rest on this child's shoulders. Does anybody just by a proxy feel the weight of that? Of if your parents are raising you up and the moment you start to begin to understand things, they're going, hey, the entire world depends on you. The weight of all the rulers, of all the authorities, of all the governments, of all the systems, of all the nations, that weight is on your shoulders. We already have enough anxiety as it is. Can you imagine being in that place? So already something special is happening. And when it says that will be, for us, we can read that will be on his shoulders. Will be on his shoulders. That seems so simple and so quick to read through that. But if we break down what that means, that it will be on his shoulders, the translation means it will rest on his shoulders. So think about that. It will the entire ruling authority of every power in the nations in the world will rest on his shoulders. It also means that it will be established, built as a cornerstone, as a foundation. All of the ruling and all of the authority and all of the power that will sustain this world will be established, built on his shoulders. It also means to abide and to stand. All that is going to last and be powerful and reigning in dominion forever and ever and ever will abide on his shoulders, will stand on his shoulders. Baby, everything will rest. Something different is happening, right? And we need to enter into the wild call of this. Because it wasn't just a baby was born, it was a baby was born in everything. For the last few hundred years, for the next few hundred years, from the moment that Isaiah wrote this, everything depends and rests and abides and stands on the birth of this child. The next words are, and he will be called. I love that because if we're picturing that, if I'm taking Adam and I'm saying Adam is going to be born and all authority and everything is going to be given to him, and we start looking at his character and we start saying, what is he called? We're going to find some things we really, really like and some things we really, really don't, right? Because that's all of us. If we start opening up all of the closet and everything that's within us, there's going to be some things people really, really like and some things people really, really don't. And out of them knowing us and us revealing ourselves in that way of opening the inside and the very depths of who we are, they're going to call us things out of that for us to be known by and identified by. Think of it like in practical American terms. Does it not happen with every presidency? On the front end, you have all of these things that they're saying they're going to do and saying that their platform is and saying, and then stuff happens and life happens and you see character revealed and you see, man, this is maybe not who I thought they were at the beginning. Or they have things that they hid from us in the beginning that we didn't understand, and now it's changed my concept of what I would call them. Fair? Same is true of us. As people get to know us and they see what we're about, sometimes that can change how they would call us. And so I think it's so important when we read these words, what Isaiah is establishing 800 years before Jesus is what he will be called. And then the beauty is, and we'll get to that, we get to fast forward because we live all the way on the other side of Jesus coming and living. And we go, was he these things? Does he deserve to be called these things? Did he live up to this kind of prophecy? And then we get to weigh that as our God, as the one who came to save. So the first two things, and that's all we're going to make it through today. It says he will be called Wonderful Counselor. This is huge impact for our lives. And it doesn't seem that way because it's kind of just this nice thing, right? Of like, yeah, wonderful counselor. I'd like a wonderful counselor. Maybe you have a wonderful counselor. I would advise everyone find a wonderful counselor in their life. But this is so much more than just that. First, wonderful. Think of maybe the last time, we've probably used this word pretty recently, maybe. This is a pretty common word for us, and we use it like love, or like about a lot of other things that we use, like, man, those pancakes were wonderful. That was wonderful. Oh, that snow outside, that's wonderful. Till I have to drive in it. For now, it's wonderful. Man, I had that cup of coffee with that person. That was wonderful. It's just kind of this like good and well, and like it was a wonderful, happy thing. It was wonderful. That is not what this means. Maybe it scratches the surface, but this goes so much deeper because this is literally, if we're translating this, full of wonder. And when we start doing the translation studies of this word, wonder, it means hard to understand, challenging, complicated, difficult. It causes us to wonder, to think, how is that thing possible? And so for him to be described as wonderful means it inspires us to be full of wonder, full of looking at this man who lived and did all the things that he did and all of the claims that he made, and us go, I don't get it. It fills me with wonder. That's the kind of wonderful that we're dealing with here. And that's important because we are all guilty of this. I will call every single one of us out on this, myself included. We're all guilty where we go, Jesus got it. I understand it. I get it. It's Jesus. I know what he did. He came and died for me, and he's hung on the cross. He rose again 3 days later. I get it. Check mark. Got it. Got Jesus. No, it says he will be called. He is defined by and known by in his character and his presence as wonderful, inspiring us to constantly be full of wonder. And don't we know as he entered the scene, from the moment that he was born, not when he's just performing miracles and bringing dead people back to life and speaking these truths that turn the whole world upside down, which would have been enough from the very beginning. Born of a virgin. And we go, well, how did that happen? Well, God did it. Yeah, but how? That makes me full of wonder. And it wasn't just me now reading this. It's going all the way back then where these wise men, like, what shall they be called? Wise men. That's how they were known. That was their primary function. That was the thing that they identified with, and people identified with them. They were the wise. And what happened in this moment was so wild and full of wonder that these wise men left their position and traveled long distances, bringing very, very valuable gifts to sit before this baby and worship and honor him. Does that confuse anybody else? Because it kind of confuses me. That fills me with wonder. And from the very beginning, that has been the life of Christ here on earth. Full of wonder, full of depth, hard to understand. Now, he's God. And when we kind of really force those two connections together and connect those things, and we go, he's fully God, fully man, of course that's going to be weird. That should fill us with wonder. But he could have stopped there. And like we've seen in Scripture, where every now and then Jesus stands or God stands before someone asking questions of them, and he goes, listen, guys, even if I tried to explain it to you, you just wouldn't understand it. And don't you know, as God and creator of the universe, he would have been fully justified to do that with everything? We are not owed an explanation. Fair? We think we are because we think we're really important. But if he is who he said he is, and he's the God of the universe, the creator of all things, breathing every single thing that exists into existence just by his breath and word and desire, who are we to go, now God, explain this to me? He could have just stayed wonderful, right? And that still, in his presence and all the great power that he has and things that he have done, would have been enough to deserve our worship. But he didn't just stop at wonderful, he also was our wonderful counselor. So now let's unpack that second word, because we also have a lot of misunderstandings maybe in what this means and what it means in our world and our context. First, foremost, important just to say, I am as pro-counseling as you can possibly get, specifically with Christian counseling. Because it seems weird to if I'm wanting to take my car in to get worked on and I take it to like a bicycle shop. Like it's close, but they're not going to have all the right parts and tools to understand how this thing was made and how it's supposed to operate, right? Like they have a different specialty. And so if we believe we're uniquely formed and created, designed by God to be the purpose of all that we're designed to be, we should kind of talk with people who have that same understanding and are working with the same toolbox of the Holy Spirit and of God's wisdom and word and instruction in our life. Same page? Okay, so I'm all about it because we aren't well. We're all broken in our own ways, and we will all encounter very difficult things. And God tells us not to keep those things in darkness, but to share those things in light. And what better way than to go speak with the professional who loves Jesus to help you through those dark seasons. We're pro-counseling. Love it. I have been personally in very, very dark seasons. Hannah and I have been together in not dark seasons, just because we want to know what to do when dark seasons come. So this is like the whole sidebar, and we'll get back to all of this. If you've seen counselors, great, keep doing it. Like you should check under the hood every now and then. You just should. And if you've never, but you would like to, please talk to me about that, because I'd love to find someone for you to talk to. We have great people in the city that really, really can help. We know that this season can be a dark, dark, awful season for a lot of people. Christmas is not wonderful for everyone. If that's you, don't struggle through this alone. Let us help. Okay? All right, but let's go back to that. So when we think counselor, what do we think? Start painting a picture for me. When you think counselor, what are you thinking? Think of the couch. What were you going to say? Attorney? Okay, attorney. Like to provide counsel. Yeah, I like that's good. We'll come back to that. I think of the counselor, I think of like a therapist. That's how we use that phrase. I think of like sitting on the couch and they've got their little clipboard and they're like, tell me about your childhood. And you get into it and they're like, and they're making notes. And you're going, what are they saying? I wish I knew what they were saying. I'm never going to know. Maybe they're doodling. That's what I think. I don't think I'm that interesting. But we think of this counselor that we take our problems to, and they ask us some good questions, and they hear us out, and they empathize and sympathize, and then maybe they give us some tools and tips and structures to then go and practice and put our life together with. Fair? Like pretty decent understanding of a counselor, but you also have the freedom to be like, yeah, I don't know, they're just another person too, and like that doesn't really resonate with me, and I'm going to take some of what they said and some of what I have experienced in my life and put those things together. Where a counselor, a really, really effective counselor, is helping you answer the questions that you have. They're helping you come to the conclusions of the own questions that you have in your heart. Okay, that again just scratches the surface. of what it means for Jesus to be our counselor, because we do have the freedom. Isn't that wild? Remember, wonderful God, full of wonder. And he goes, share your burdens with me. When Jesus is praying and he's modeling prayer, he prays for God-sized, kingdom-come things first, but he also prays for today's bread. He says, listen, God is not above your daily needs and concerns. And so as our counselor, he's like, absolutely, I want to know what's happening in your heart. I want to empathize and sympathize with you and hear you out and let you lay your burdens at my feet, and we can talk about those things together. Absolutely, he fills that role. But it means so much more. Because in this time, what we read about in the Hebrew culture, there weren't these professional counselors like we think of now. What they had were advisors. Very wise, very competent, very skilled, the elite of their fields that would sit around and advise the decision makers on the best decisions that they could possibly make based on their expertise. Many times, this would even be who's the number one advisor to the king? The king. Because he gets to make the decision. And so sometimes that's the role of the king. Sometimes it's the role of these wise, trusted men that we read about over and over and over and over again in Scripture, who were raised to these positions of power as to be these great advisors. So what would it mean for Jesus to be our advisor that fills us with wonder? What would that mean? What could that imply in our lives? Beyond what we can understand. He should impart wisdom to us that is beyond what we can fully grasp, because it should fill us with wonder. His wisdom should. His instruction can fill us with wonder. God, why would you ask me to do that in your word? It doesn't make sense to me. But he goes, I am the advisor. I am the one who structured all of these things. Remember, all of the government and authority and power and everything rest on my shoulders. Trust me. Which circles back to us being the faithful, right? For us to be faithful to him means to trust him, that as he advises, we say, yes, Lord. Even though it may fill us with wonder. God, I don't understand everything that you're saying, but I trust you. So we go back and we look at some scripture, and I can give lots of these for you to read, but I'm going to read through them really quickly. But when we talk about Jesus being wonderful, beyond understanding, challenging, upside down world, we see his virgin birth in Matthew 1:23. We see the powerful that he has to heal and to raise the dead all throughout the Gospels. There's comment on his amazing teaching that people are in wonder of, befuddled by. In Mark 1:22, we see that he lived a perfect life. Anybody try to live a perfect life lately? How many of you think you could live the rest of the day perfectly? Anybody? He was. Does that fill you with wonder? You think of every moment you want to believe something that's not true about somebody, or you're angry, or you feel like you've been wronged and you want to act out or lash out. He was perfect. Man, that fills me with wonder. If all of that wasn't enough, he was crucified, buried, and came back to life. And not for like hours or days or years, forever. When's the last time you lived for an eternity? Does that fill you with wonder? He said things like, rejoice and be glad, even in persecution. He said, love your enemies and do to them as you would have them do to you. As an advisor, we see him in Colossians 2:3 said that he has hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge in him. Let's say that again. All the treasures of wisdom and knowledge are in God, our advisor, our counselor. I love what you guys think. I love your opinions. I love your wisdom. I love your knowledge. I'm going to ask him, though, if he's got all of it perfectly, I'll never achieve that in a whole lifetime of study. That's our wonderful counselor. It also says that he knows everything about us, which goes back to that human component that we like to read over and gloss over because we go, you were Jesus, you were perfect, you didn't have temptation. Yes, he did. We read about it. He was tempted, but he was perfect in how he handled temptation. Fully God-honoring in every moment, holy, perfect. But he understands every thought that comes through your head because he's lived it. He could not have been able to do that if he had not come and been born as this baby, right? And how amazing that is this Christmas season as we go through whatever it is that we go through, we get to know that we had a God who cared so much that he came and experienced life just like us in every way, shape, form, and fashion. So that as he advised us, he doesn't say so from his far distant throne in judgment. He says so with arms open, showing the scars of the life that he lived here on this earth, saying, I love you, I understand you, let me help you. That fills me with wonder. Hebrews 4:15 through 16 says this, and we will have this on the screen. It says, for we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weakness, but instead we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are, but without sin. Therefore, let us approach the throne of grace with boldness so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in our time of need. The one who stands for us, who advocates for us, who lawyers for us, who advises us, who protects us, who shepherds us. He is able to sympathize and feel in our weakness. And in that, he says, not only do I sympathize and I understand completely, I am telling you to come boldly before the throne. Some of us come boldly at everything. I've experienced it firsthand from you. You are bold people. Some of us, that terrifies to death to have to be bold with someone. I'm like right on the fence. It depends on what it is. But there's many times with the thought of being bold to coming to someone, maybe that I have a complaint against or I have an issue with or I need something from, and to boldly go before them and go, I need help. Do you ever struggle with that like I do? Perfect God, that all things rest on his shoulders, says, come boldly before me so I can help you. Because that is the desire of my heart. It's why I am called Wonderful Counselor. So let's wrap this up this way. Conviction time. How often do we try to convince ourselves that we know better? I don't need raised hands because I know we're all guilty. But think about that. Think about that. And how many times in our relationship with God do we try to convince ourselves that we really do know better? God, I get it. I understand. I've read your word. I see what you say. I hear the people say it. I get it, but you don't really understand the depth of the situation that I'm in. You don't understand the depth of the hurt or the trauma that I've experienced, Lord. You don't understand the complication of the relationships that I'm trying to work through and move towards. God, you don't understand what I have done and the depth of my sin. How often do we try to convince ourselves that he doesn't really get us? If you're like me, pretty often. Because I like my way better. I like being my counselor. I like being the one who decides what I get to do and what's right for me and good for me. And the reality that we live in a culture that tells us that's how it's supposed to happen, right? Do what's good for you. Do what makes you feel good. Do what makes you happy. Do what brings you contentment. Whatever's on the inside, put it on the, like, God, if you lived today, maybe you'd say something different. You just don't understand what I'm going through. And in wonder, we can look at him And go, really? Because he says, yeah, I do. I do understand. I understand perfectly and completely everything that you've been through and everything that you will ever go through and every struggle that you've ever had and everything you will ever struggle with. I understand completely. And not only do I understand completely, I sympathize with you. Because I know what it's like to hurt. Isn't that wild? Isn't that wild that we have a God who came and suffered so that he could look us in the face and say, I know what it's like. I know what it's like to suffer. I know what it's like to sacrifice. I know what it's like to lose loved ones. I know what it's like to lose. Proverbs 19:21 says this, many plans are in a person's heart. We got plans now. We're ready to go eat. You got plans for that second cup of coffee. It may be empty. That restaurant you want to go to may be closed. You've got plans. I got plans for today. I got plans for next year. I got plans for years from now. I try to picture how my life will end someday. I can make plans. It says many are the plans in a person's heart. But only the Lord's decree will prevail. And we have to swallow that. We got to take that in. Because no matter what we think the world will end like, or no matter what we think eternity will be like, or no matter what we think will justify us to stand boldly before the throne, God says, I get it. You've got plans. You've got ideas. You've got counsel. Only my decrees will stand, though. So come to me, know me, put your faith in me, and let me be your wonderful counselor. Lord, what do you want me to do? God, what do you want me to do? Maybe you're asking that question right now. Like, I feel convicted. What do you want me to do? And if only it were that simple for me to go leave here, say 10 Hail Marys, then you did it. Pray for 20 minutes, give this much in the tithe box, and you're good. It's not how it works. What he says is, because I'm your wonderful counselor, here's what I want from you. Our role is to trust him and to be faithful to his word and to his counsel. Easier said than done, I know, but that's our role as his people, as the faithful ones coming to adore him, to read his word, to know it, and to trust him. And to the very best of our ability, be faithful time and time again to trust him as he advises and counsels us. As the faithful, we come to adore a wonderful counselor. Let's pray.